GM. Uh, Good morning. Welcome to From A to Z. I'm Zombie Shepherd, and what are we going to get into today? Well, I think the best way to put it is everyone thinks that they're progressive and you've gone too far. And I would start this all the way on the right. Like, people on the right don't think, yes, they say they like conservative values and all those things, but they don't actually think that they're moving backwards in time. Meaning they still think like these conservative values are carrying us into the future. Like, Elon is a technologist. All of these like techno feudalist guys or whatever, like they are all building the future. So conservative people also think they're progressive. They think they're moving towards the future. And so, Democrats and liberals are like, yes, we are actually the progressive and everything is moving according to plan, meaning this turtle snail like movement of progress towards the left, even if it gets pulled to the right every 4 years or every 8 years, like this is fast enough. This is good. This is progress. This is the way it should be going. And then you get to the actual left movement, because liberalism is not a left movement, but you get to the actual left movement and you see like, social communists, or anything true leftism begins at anti-capitalism. So leftists hate socialists. See where this already gets muddy? Because liberals and conservatives hate socialists. Like, liberals and conservatives think that socialism is too far left, So then, beginning at anti-capitalism, like you're like, all right, well, that's as far left as you can go. If you don't really know political history or political discourse, you're like, man, that's got to be as far as you can go, right? And no, no, it's not as far as you can go, because there you have, communists, Marxist Leninists, Maoists moving further left into anarchism. And the argument there is basically like anarchists are kind of like communists are just authoritarians. And I think that, like, without trying to like necessarily wear a hat or whatever, I would say that like the goal is always to get that far left. If you're talking about a classless, moneyless society, you're also probably talking about a stateless society. And when people talk about eliminating borders and nation states and all that stuff, that is anarchist in principle. Like, you can't stop at communism, but like communism is a step towards more. Like, socialism is a step towards communism. Communism is a step towards statelessness. And like, I can see already in the online discourse, you've got the left infighting or whatever, and people who are like more normie in the middle are like, oh, leftist infighting is liberals fighting. And it's like, no, liberals aren't even left. Like, that's really the distance in the conversation that we're having here, is that most people don't even acknowledge any left political movements at all. In the United States, there is no left political movement. And, I think that this conversation is pointless, because anarchists and Marxist Leninists arguing over what comes after capitalism, neither, because you won't stop arguing. Because the bottom line is, like, everybody thinks that progress only goes as far as I say it goes. And that's the reality. And everyone's current comfort level is stop at liberalism. And I don't care if you consider yourself a leftist. You stop at liberalism. End of story. Like, that's what everybody's doing. The reason I say that everyone stops at liberalism is because everybody is operating from a place of comfort. And I've said this before, but the reality is nobody wants to be uncomfortable. Nobody is going to do what it takes to have an actual change in anything. I don't believe anybody. I don't believe any of you, period. Like, there is why? Because when I see protests, I see people standing around with their cameras watching as ICE beat people. They're screaming and they're pointing their cameras. They're not doing anything. There's very few times where anyone actually attacks ICE. So, like, that tells me, like, you want to have the pretty trappings of a revolution, but you don't want to do anything that's actually going to get you arrested. And you don't want to do anything that's actually going to cause any demonstrable change. You just want to scream loudly and pretend that you want change and then go to work on Monday. And this is everyone. Like, and it's the argument we're having now where we're watching people argue about whether or not electoral politics works. And you have people already falling back into identity to be like, oh, well, you better vote blue no matter who. Like, it's already turning into that because it's like, well, look, we have fascism now. Who cares what's going on across the world? Who cares, about the genocide going on? That's not our problem. We need to worry about what's going on at home. And this is people of color saying these words. And I'm like, this is exactly why we'll never win. Because everybody is only concerned about themselves. Everybody is concerned about, hey, we need to fix things at home before we fix the world, not understanding that the imperialism out in the world is the imperialism at home. It's all one thing. And the fact that you can't stop it abroad, you won't stop it at home. Like, it's not anything. Like, you're not trying to do anything other than be comfortable. And the reason I say liberalism is because that is like the broad scope. Neoliberalism is like the type of current political economy that we're running in. We have this globalist situation where everything is interconnected, and there's nothing wrong with having an interconnected market except for the fact that the way we've interconnected this market is through imperialism. Like, it's not an agreed upon market in which every actor is happy with their situation, and it depends on slavery. And in order for your favorite goods to exist, it depends on slavery. And that doesn't matter your political leanings. And I understand that we're all trapped in a system in which, like, it's hard to exist in this. Like, if you want a phone, you're going to have to buy a phone from a child laborer. Like, every phone is created by some kind of slavery. End of story. So your options are, if you actually want to move into that political realm, like, you have to engage. And so I think the biggest, most disingenuous part is people acting like they don't want to engage with it. Meaning, like, I don't have a choice. I have to buy slave items. But then, like, they do have a choice in some items. Like, you don't have to own everything. You don't have to do all these things, but you opt in anyway. And then you give yourself the excuse that, like, there's a reason I have to be here. And it's everyone's willing participation in the system. It's everyone's willingness to look around at the next person and say, well, they're doing it, so I'm going to do it. Like, it's everybody's complicity on some level because, as I've said before, like, what are we actually advocating for? Are we saying that we should all, like, live like the Amish? Are we saying that we should all, like, go back to everybody being on the farm? And, I think that that's where a lot of people get held up with anti-capitalism is because I don't think anyone wants their current comfortable life and access to the things that they love to go away. And I don't think anybody has a clear, vision on that whole thing. Like, I think there are some people that know, yeah, that stuff's going to go away and they're fine with it. And there are other people that are not. And I really think that there are people who consider themselves left that know damn well they don't want any of this stuff to go away. And I think that's a lot of people. And I think that's most people. I think that somebody on social media with a cell phone in their hand preaching anarchy or communism or any of those things isn't saying, I want my phone in my hand to go away. I think that they want to find a world in which the future can exist without exploitation. And the reality is that that is some gray area of liberalism. And personally, like I'm anti authoritarian. And so I guess in that way, you could say I'm an anarchist, but I'm also realizing we're social creatures. And I know that we're going to form hierarchies and so in societies and like groups. And you can't tell people not to do that. But we need to have a stronger mental ethic around how we do these things and how we form hierarchies and why we form hierarchies and how to regroup and disband those things when necessary rather than having these like wars and whatever. But the reason I'm so anti-authoritarian, and the big thing I talk about in a lot of episodes, is like, how do we create a future of equality and egalitarianism without violence, without just authoritarian state violence top down? And whether you're a conservative, a liberal, or a communist, you all believe in state violence. And I think that that's the one place in which I believe in anarchy the most, is because, or at least anarchist principles, is that, talking about the political compass, we've talked about this before in past episodes, but Democrats and Republicans both live in the top right quadrant, which is authoritarian. In terms of the political compass, both Democrats and Republicans live in the top right-hand quadrant of the scale. So that being control of the economy, control of how people act. Democrats are further left, which means that they want to have a little more leniency on the social aspect. But zero, they don't want any more leniency when it comes to like money and state control. You would say that communists start to get into the actual left side of the graph. When you move further socialist, and what that means is that like you're free to be as you want, you're free to be who you want, but still under an authoritarian economy in which the entire economy is controlled from the state. The big problem with everything at the top half is, how do you adjust for human greed? And that is the huge problem. And actually that's the whole graph. And that's why we can't have the bottom half of the graph at all, because right now as humans, the only coordination mechanism we have figured out is violence. The only way you can get people to coordinate is by threat of death. That's it. That is it. Period. And let's not look at this in the big scale. Let's look at this in the small scale. How do you get people in your family to act right? How do you get your neighbors to act right? How do you people don't cooperate. Even people that are supposed to cooperate, like families and friends, end up breaking ties, end up writing each other off, end up completely, done with each other. Why? Because you can't talk to anybody. You can't coordinate with anybody. Your own family hates you. At least that's a lot of people. And that's why the poor remain poor too, is because if you can't cooperate with your own family because maybe your parents operate from a place of authoritarianism, and so you're only because that's how we're taught to parent, is as authoritarians. And so if you can't cooperate with your own family and you can't not fight with your neighbors and your coworkers, the only thing keeping everybody coordinated, even on the small scale, is the threat of violence. Meaning you can't hurt and kill the people around you, so you just disassociate yourself. You say, all right, well, since we can't cooperate and nobody can get each other to coordinate using language, then I guess I will just remove myself. But removing yourself from your family unit means that you are reliant on the world, meaning like grocery stores and Ubers and whatever the services that you use that are in lieu of family. All of those services are controlled and exist because of state violence. Like capitalists would say it's there because of the money, and I would say, if you want to look at it in a more structural functionalist way, then you would say that money is the thing that allows us to coordinate without the violence. However, the money only works because there's a backdrop of violence. So I do believe in money as a human coordination tool as well. However, without having adjusted for greed, which is what we were talking about with the compass, so without having adjusted for greed, money ends up accumulating one way or another. And so when you go to the capitalist part of it, and because even communists talk about being anti-money, which I'll get to that in a second. It's weird, but capitalists are like, money allow us to coordinate, this technology allows us to do a thing, and I agree with the sentiment. However, capitalism, meaning you have to separate the ideas of money and finance from capitalism, because capitalism is a type of way in which you use the money and the finance. Money and finance are still a tool that exists even if capitalism didn't. So capitalists think that the money and the tools and that human coordination effort is so powerful that they then created more and more and more tools like credit and debt and all these other things that then give you the ability to disenfranchise people. It becomes a weapon against people you want to attack if you know how to separate people from money. On the other side of it, communists, let's just say you got into a point with the left where you actually had less money, and it was not a moneyless society. It was a more moneyless society. Like, I still think under that, money is still useful for, like, in that transitionary period, getting that direction. Money is still useful as a human coordination tool. And I think that communists basically are saying, like, stricter controls on money will lead to better resource division towards people and individuals and communities. Rather than having everything focus on the money, things should focus on the community. Agreed. If you move further to a moneyless society, you're still talking about the division of the resources themselves, and you still are trying to divide those things. Distribution. You want to get good distribution of those items. And how do you stop greed? How do you stop people who have access to the actual food or the resources from taking the best for themselves? So you're still left with the issue of human greed. And still the only coordination tool that we have is violence. I think that in order for us to get to a new level of human society, we have to get past violence. We have to figure out coordination that is not just violence. And money is the only technology we've created so far that has attempted that, but it has been directed back towards violence. Financial violence is real. That's why I'm kind of a techno-optimist, and I hope that the way in which we create a better coordination is through technology, because technology is the only thing that attempts to create can't be evil technologies. And by putting our governance into structures in which there's more transparency while retaining privacy, but creating systems that don't allow you to do evil things. Now, when I say this, obviously we're talking about within the system. We're talking about like you can't put human bodies into technology. I'm not advocating for like chips in your brain that prevent you from doing violence or anything like that. I'm talking about like creating a society in which everyone has access to resources, but also ensuring that you can't use those resources to hurt people, and ensuring that your access to resources becomes limited based on your ability to do violence to other people. And when I say that, I'm not talking about resources like food and housing, and I'm not talking about imprisoning people. I'm talking about reducing harm as much as possible by preventing people from having the need to scam each other, the need to rip each other off, the need to feel like the only way you can get ahead in life is by taking something from someone else. And I know that covers a lot, but most crime is due to poverty and not having access to food. But even one of the greatest crimes going on in our society is landlords. Like the fact that individuals feel that the only way that they can get ahead in life is by stealing the wages of another low income individual. Meaning, like, if you are a wage slave, then your big dream of getting some kind of passive income or being your own boss is to buy up property and then to rent that property back to other wage slaves, which means that you are a parasite living off of your own class. You are literally saying, hey, my wage doesn't make enough, so I need some of your wage too. And I will get your wages because you need somewhere to live. And the best option for you to get somewhere to live is to pay me, your peer. And then, because I own 2 homes, I'm better than you. And that's society. Like, that's why we can't have nice things, is because someone who makes maybe $5 more than you, maybe $10 more than you, somebody who makes, $10,000 or $20,000 a year more than you, has an opportunity to own a home, a second home, and rent it back to you. And that is unjust. That is disgusting. It's disgusting that is the best option offered to us. Is, you know what? If you can't get ahead in life, steal it from your neighbor. Yeah, landlords are gross. Like, sorry. It's gross. It's residential landlording, especially. When you get into commercial landlording and, equipment rental and other things like that, you can argue, different things there. But what I'm saying is, in a society where resources are more open and available, you wouldn't have as much landlording and rentals because people would have other ways of getting hold of help than being extorted. Plus, you're not actually creating value. When you buy something of value and rent it back to people, you are not creating value. You're extracting value. You're creating a tax, a fare, a fee. You're putting up a toll bridge and saying, look how useful I am. You're just a toll bridge. People need to get things done, and you found a way of inserting yourself in the middle of progress, and you call that useful. And I think that's why a lot of people are anti-money, because that's the most ways in which we view money in markets, is like most things exist as bureaucracy or fee collection. Like, they don't actually exist as services and things actually being done for society. It's just fee collection. And rents and fees don't do anything to push our society forward. The only thing rents and fees serve for is, like we were talking about before, that is the violence. That is the ability to gatekeep and keep people out. Like, how do you decide who gets to go into a restaurant? Who can afford to? How do so this is how we've decided who gets to eat what. How much money do you have? Like, if you have less money, you get to eat garbage. If you have more money, you get to eat, slightly better, treated better. But in a lot of cases, like, and this is part of the problem why the middle class is going away, is like every restaurant is Cisco now. So like we're all eating the same garbage. Whether you eat at McDonald's or you eat at some high-end restaurant, you're probably mostly eating Cisco garbage. You're eating mass-produced garbage. Most of the things on your plate are going to be from a mass producer, and maybe, the seafood or the beef or one or two of the items on there might actually be, from a farm or niche, but for the most part, it's coming from Cisco. It's coming from a mass producer, and that's why, like, it's all falling apart, is because that illusion of being able to keep people out has gone away. Now you can't keep people out based on money. You can, but due to civil rights and all the things that people want to complain about, like anybody can get into the nice restaurant now as long as they got money and they got access to money. And people don't like the fact that access to money has opened up, to more and more quote unquote minority groups. So, people, everybody has people that they want to keep out. And that's why everybody is stuck at liberalism. Because at the end of the day, like, you're dependent on this long train of goods and the violence that keeps the people you want out. And your entire ability to go no contact with your family or cut off people you don't like, or, not forming relationships, and like the whole dating epidemic and argument there. And like all of this stuff exists only because of the violence of the state. Like, you wouldn't be able to be an independent individual if there was not a violent state keeping everything in line. It's not the dollars keeping everything in line. It's the violent state, because you can fly anywhere and you can get the same food in every state you go to. And that is growing across the whole world, where now there's McDonald's everywhere in the world. So, I asked a long time ago, like, how close are we to revolution? 0. I don't believe any of you. I just don't. Like, I don't see it happening. And it's not an accusation like, oh, I'm doing so much. Like I said in the last episode, I'm not going to get into this long tit for tat about who's doing what. We're all doing it wrong. We're all doing some things right. We're all doing some things wrong. Some of us are doing more things right than others. But we're all doing something wrong. We're all complicit. And to pretend that you're not complicit is ridiculous. So people might watch this and be like, why are you preaching at me? Why are you telling me like you're so much better than me? I'm preaching at myself too. Like, this is internalize these things. Like, if you're angry about what I'm saying, then think about it. Think about how complicit you are in your own persecution. Yeah, I mean, what I was getting at is that we all try and we all do different things, and we can all look at someone else and say, you're not doing this and you're not doing that. And I think the other part of it is that we all look at things people are doing and saying, well, you're doing this evil thing that I don't like and I think is evil, and so therefore I don't like you. but then you're doing something that someone else thinks is evil and doesn't like you. And the funny thing is, in a weird way, everybody's punching right. Meaning, doesn't matter how far left you are, doesn't matter where you stand on, you know, the political spectrum, because whoever you're attacking a conservative value in them. You're attacking something that you're like, this is where you're not progressive. So that person can be progressive all over the place. But the one thing that you think they're not progressive on is where you're going to just go in on them. And the one thing, and everybody thinks that the one thing, you know, that they think is the most important is the one thing holding us back from progress. And it's not one thing. And so what I mean by that is, like, you know, you could be a vegan who never flies, who doesn't, you know, who has solar panels on their house, who collects rainwater. And if someone finds out that you use Bitcoin or cryptocurrency or AI, they can turn around and be like, well, you are the worst person in the world because you use AI and AI data centers this and, you know, cryptocurrency and the effect and this. But I just told you that person is a vegan. They don't use planes. They have solar panels and they collect rainwater. None of that would matter to you if you're a person who hates crypto and hates AI. You wouldn't even ask them, why do you do all those other things, but you still use crypto and AI? You wouldn't even stop and say, hey, maybe there's a reason that this person has stopped all those other things, but still uses these technologies. What am I missing that a person who believes so much in climate change and so much in repairing the world still uses technologies that I think are damaging to the world? Do you stop and ask? Do you stop and talk to that person? No. You persecute, you say they're evil, but that person can turn around and look at you and say, hey, you took 3 flights last year. You flying is more dangerous than me using AI. Period. End of story. Like, anybody ever who preaches about climate change and then uses a plane is just cognitive dissonance between their own usage. It doesn't matter. Like, you could literally just live on a farm and never use anybody's resources ever. And if you take 1 flight, you are more damaging than most people that take no flights and just live eating beef and coffee and weed and all the things. Beef, coffee, and weed, because all those things are intense on energy consumption and CO2. Like, that's my point, is like, there are so many leftists who love beef, coffee, and weed and are berating people who like cryptocurrency and AI for their energy usage. It's tit for tat, people. Like, it really is. If you really, nobody's doing this because you can't play moral Olympics if you actually do the math. But, like, pull out the math on these things. What we should be doing if we actually want to, like, judge and grade people is everybody should be keeping their own carbon footprint. Everybody should know how much water usage, how much carbon usage, how much energy usage they personally do a year. And if you're so concerned about the environment, then worry about decreasing your personal footprint. Now, I do believe people should do that, but I'm not advocating for individual responsibility over corporate responsibility, which is why I always tell people, leave people alone about their energy usage, because we have to do something about it as a society. It's not something that we can say, hey, individually, everybody has to do this, that, and the other. I think you should for personal responsibility reasons, but I don't think that that is the end-all, be-all to situations. Why? Because I've been boycotting prison labor for 15 years at least. Like, in my mid-20s, I decided, like, I wasn't going to participate in prison labor anymore. And I've done my best to do something about that. Well, prison labor still exists. Now, the incarceration rate has dropped immensely. Do I think that's because I stopped buying the goods? No. Like, I morally do not want to participate in prison labor, so I do my best to not buy any goods that participate in prison labor. However, I have not avoided goods that come from the global south, which are probably still created by either prison labor or slave labor or some form of like underpaid wages. I'm not as tied to that thing. It's not as visible to me. I do understand it, but I don't have the same like access to it or the ability to boycott it, in the sense that, like, once again, we're at that point where, well, yes, I could boycott those things if I had zero technology. If I said, I don't want a phone, I don't want this camera, I don't want this microphone, because the problem is, like, almost none of these things are ethically sourced or able to be bought ethically. And maybe if they are, they're probably way out of my price range. Meaning maybe there's things that I can buy that are like all US made or all local made. Maybe. I would still think even a lot of those parts are probably sourced from out of the country. But regardless, in my price range, the things that I'm able to buy are probably sourced from the global south in unethical ways. That wasn't the point I was making. The point I'm making is that all of the time that I've been environmentally conscious and prison labor conscious, and the more and more things I attach to my political awakening, personally make me more aware and personally make me more conscious of the choices I make, but it doesn't actually break the system, because I can't even get the people around me to live the way I do. Go back to the community thing. Like, what does it matter if I do all of these things if my partner doesn't do any of them? And I'm not saying she doesn't, I'm just saying in general. Like, if you're, and that's part of, like, the dating problem right now is, like, it is so hard to get somebody who's going to align with you politically. And I don't mean that, like, there's two ways to look at that. There's, like, the big ones where it's like, yeah, I just want somebody who's not going to vote against my rights and whatever. But then there's the little ones where, like, smaller ones where, like, hey, just because a person owns some cryptocurrency doesn't mean they're not progressive, and, like, we're never going to find somebody that aligns with us perfectly. So when everything is a big deal, like, of course we're going to be divided. Like, because, like I said, everybody's punching right. Everybody thinks that I am the most progressive and that anything that's further left than me is just insane. And so, like, the reality is that any leftist who's not also a vegan is not far left enough. Period. If you're a communist that believes you have to kill animals to eat, you're not woke. End of story. Like, and that's how it's going to go. Like, I've talked about this before in other situations, but the person of quote unquote higher moral value will always have the right to look down at you. And it's why we can't agree on anything, because everybody thinks that they are the person of the highest moral value and that everything I care about is important, and everything that, if you care more than me, you're crazy, you're too progressive. And if you care less than me, you're a fascist. End of story. So I don't think that humanity is suddenly going to have more grace. I don't think humanity is going to suddenly be less racist or sexist or misogynistic. And I'm not saying that in the sense of, like, promoting that those things should exist. What I'm saying is, like, look outside of the US. Just go to any country in the world where there's not a large predominance of white people. They still have racism and sexism. They still have ableism, and they still have all of the things, even within monoliths, even with people that seem to be the same group of people. There's colorism and there's every form of division. I don't think that we're anywhere near, as a species, getting rid of those things. And so in lieu of violence, we have to find systems that take care of everyone. And take care of everyone means that we have to be more accepting of people we don't like. Period. Because we have to realize that my emotions, my feelings are not the end all be all of what society should be like. And the societies we live in are the Venn diagram of the things that people agree on the most. And that's like in the John Locke idea of like a country, a government can only exist as much as its people allows it to exist. So I'm not saying that every person who is abused by a system agrees with that system. What I'm saying is there's enough people within that system that agree to it to keep it alive. And we all do things to keep it alive. And we all try to thrive and survive within a system that sometimes hates us. And it is in that complicity, it is in those actions that we become complicit in our own abuse. And I think that's why that even as you participate in these systems, it's important to speak out. Even as you do things, it's important to be aware of why you're doing it, what about the things you're doing that you want to survive into the new world, and what of your beliefs would align with that or disalign with that. And I think that everybody has soul searching to do. And until we as a species evolve past, a lot of these things like greed and racism and all these hatreds and lack of love and the need to control other people, until we as a species grow more and more mature, we have to just be willing to accept everyone and find ways to rehabilitate and coexist in the most safe and peaceful way possible with everyone, even the ones that we don't agree with, because we are an immature species. And even the dumbest people on this planet in our societies, the misogynists, the racists, the people who still believe in the invisible man in the sky, we have to leave grace for our species to grow into something newer and better. And that means recognizing that I'm wrong. There are things I'm saying that are wrong. There are things that I want that will not exist in a better future. And just having the grace to move forward with that. The thing I'm scared about is techno-feudalism and the fact that so many people just don't care that we are giving up all of our data to, like, the things I'm saying are kind of what the techno-feudalists are trying to do, but they're doing it once again in this fascist and authoritarian way, rather than creating a world in which everyone is aware of the system that we're going into and trying to get people to understand and embrace the system rather than doing it against their will. This has me thinking about, like, I remember watching a masterclass with the guy who created the Sim games, and he was talking about how you don't, when players complain about something in a game, you don't take their suggestions, but you do listen to their complaints, meaning that the player is going to tell you this is what you can do to fix the game. But the player doesn't actually know that's what you need to fix the game. They think that's what they want, but they just want the problem to go away. And I think that this is kind of how society works, in the sense that everybody has an opinion on, this is what I think that we need to do to fix society. And a lot of these opinions are pushed by large political organizations, or, theory and other things. So I think that this is kind of where, as a species, game theory has led us astray in a sense, because democracy gives us the impression that everything is supposed to be transparent and open and talked about directly, when actuality, like, people currently, we don't operate at a direct level. We operate at a game theoretical level, and no one is honest at face value. People are operating from the game theory. So it's why, it's why you act a certain way towards your boss or your manager, and then you act differently towards your coworkers, and then you act differently towards potential partners, and you act differently towards your parents than you do to other old people or other, like, it's why you can have, friends that are the ages of your siblings, but you don't interact with your siblings the way you interact with those people of the same age. And that's kind of like the symbolic interaction with our the people around us. But it's the game theory part of it, of this is how I operate in the world, because operating this way gets me what I want in these situations. You are operating from game theory, and you are also reacting to game theory. So the way you act at work is game theory being played out on you. The way you act in the world is you responding to the game theory of the world. And so when we talk politically and we say, this is what we should do, very seldom is anybody talking about game theory. Most people are just talking about direct actions. If you do this, then this will happen. And most people don't understand that either A, we already tried it, B, they understand that's how it works and that's why they won't do it. That's the game theory there, is like, oh, we know how the game works and we're trying to do this other thing. But very seldom do we operate from a place of like, fix this thing over here and this over here gets better, because it's so hard to get people to understand how this over here affects that over there. So like, we don't operate in game theory, and also like democracy makes it hard to even consider game theory, because like I said, everybody wants everything transparent and direct, and everybody thinks that everyone is acting transparently and direct. And that's part of the game too, is that nobody is. And it's actually what's kind of funny about the neurotypical neurodivergent argument, because neurodivergent people would say, oh, neurotypicals make this whole world complicated because they're not acting directly. And it's like, neurodivergent people aren't always acting directly either. And it's this kind of like, it's an illusion that people give themselves that they're always acting transparently and from the best place, when they in fact just aren't aware of their own game theory. But something that's very apparent scientifically via game theory is that the reason we can't talk about game theory is because the second you know the game, people will cheat the game. And so you have to keep changing the game and creating the game over to make sure that you're operating for the outcome you want without giving away the entire game so that people can take advantage of it. And that's like, you can look at, that's why laws are the way they are. That's why tax laws are the way they are. That's why everything operates the way it is because as soon as you know the game, someone is going to use the game to their advantage and win. And that's kind of like the job of lawyers. And I'm not defending any of this stuff. I'm saying that like, what we're having is a mix of the system and the way we operate as people. Like game theory and the way we, like psychology and game theory interact. So society is formed in response to the way people were acting, and people are acting as a response to the way society is formed. And it's both. It's going and it's going. And so when people say that we can just get rid of hierarchies and we can just get rid of money and we can go straight to statelessness, they are totally not understanding game theory. They are totally not understanding human nature. And I think that people who fear anarchy fear it from a place of misunderstanding, but also from a rooted understanding that people can't be trusted. And that's the reality. Like I talked about this a few episodes back about when the light goes off, like people get violent, people get weird. And yes, I understand it's mostly men. Like I'm not going to try to sugarcoat it and act like it's not mostly men. It is mostly men. How do we get past our problems without genocide? How do we get past our problems without literally just eliminating 90% of men? And then from there, you know, people would start fighting over religions and everything else. So we have to find human coordination tools and human coordination methods that are above violence. I don't know what that is yet. I would like to think that technology brings us there, but I don't want to get there at the expense of our freedoms. And you know, and like I said, there is that tough line of like we want democracy, but we also aren't very smart. We don't actually know what we want. And we think we know what we want. And this is what I was saying about the game thing is like the players always think they know what they want to make the game better. The problem being that often the thing you think you want actually makes the game worse. It actually makes everything worse. And yeah. And I don't think we're playing the best game we could possibly be playing. But I think that there is an argument to be made that we're playing the game that everyone is currently allowing to take place. We're all allowing this game to take place. And one of the ways in which we allow it to take place is by the constant fighting about the people that are wrong, rather than trying to create systems that are better. We're constantly attacking people. And it seems like our only answer is to get rid of those people. The world will always be better once those people are gone. That's everybody's answer. Like every single person is saying, well, if we got rid of those people, it would all be better. And I'm saying that across many different things. Like I've literally seen a woman saying that 90% of men need to be eliminated from the planet. Serious argument. And a lot of people in the comments agreed with that. A lot of people disagreed too, but a lot of people agreed. And, then you Christians would say if we got rid of Muslims, everything would be better. Atheists would say if we got rid of all religious people, everything would be better. That's a pretty good argument. Point is, like, as long as we're advocating to get rid of anyone, we're not going to make the world better, because people are always going to exist on a spectrum of stupidity. You're always going to have people who believe in Sky Daddy. You're always going to have people who believe in, ancient aliens or astrology or whatever bullshit that exists. Like there's always gonna be bullshit, because it's kind of like what makes life fun in a sense. Like, yeah, like people are like buying into these things seriously, but they're also a lot of the time really just buying into them for fun. Like I think people who are more like new age, like I don't know if they really believe this shit. Like meaning like astrology is the easiest one to pick on because so many people believe in it and so many people talk about it. But astrology is just, it's just racism for liberals. Like, it's just discriminate. Like, when you can just say, oh, you're a Cancer, so blah, 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 blah. Like, it's just, it's not, like, I understand the stars are real and gravity's real and all these things and the moon. And, like, I could say, if you want to get into, like, a scientific argument, there is a scientific argument to be made for moon cycles and human behavior. Does it map to astrology? Absolutely not. Like, the things astrology's doing are, like, it's bullshit. But I think also, like, if you want to have fun in the bullshit, then you kind of have to believe it. Meaning, like, you have to, like, say you believe it, even if you really don't, like, believe it. Like, you don't believe it, like, you're going to be on your deathbed throwing down tarot cards, you know what I mean? Like, nobody believes it like that. And the people that do are on a spectrum of stupid. I'm sorry. Like, but what I'm saying is, like, we should have grace for people to live on a spectrum of stupid. Like, I'm saying that, if you want to believe in astrology or, some Abrahamic religion, I don't care as long as you're not making laws. Like, you can believe whatever the hell you want, and I think that you should be allowed to believe whatever the hell you want. I don't think your beliefs should affect my day, period. I don't care what you believe. I don't care who your God is. It has nothing to do with me, and it should not be affecting me ever at all. And that goes for everybody's invisible bullshit. Like, but I believe that it should be allowed to exist. I believe that everybody should be, if you want to, believe Superman's real, cool. Like, that doesn't really harm me if you believe Superman's real. It harms me if you want to create legislation around Superman being real. Yeah. So, I think that in order for society to work for everybody, we have to create a system that embraces everybody, but also supersedes everybody. We can't have the astrologists writing laws. We can't have the Abrahamic religions writing laws. We can't have people who don't believe in empirical evidence writing laws. I don't think we're anywhere near mature enough as a species for anything remotely like anarchy to exist. I would love to believe it. I would love to see it, and I would like to get there. And on a spectrum of time, we will get there. If we can manage to live long enough and not kill ourselves and not allow, the horrible beliefs we've come across so far to keep us devolving backwards, then, like, we'll get there. But it involves undoing the damage we've done so far, which means that we have to undo patriarchy. Patriarchy is a direct consequence of Abrahamic religions. And until we move past the idea that this earth was created for us to exploit, we will never, ever live on a nice planet, and we don't deserve to. So if we as a species can't get over this fact, then we as a species will go extinct, and the next creature will have a chance at consciousness and will inherit this planet and maybe do something better with it. So if we want a chance as a species, then we need to embrace every aspect of our species with grace and humility and move forward together. And the only way I can see that happening currently is to create systems that enable access to resources for everyone. And technology is the thing that can get us there. But technology is a very dangerous thing that can also be the gilded cage that keeps us from ever achieving anything because we're so willing to fight and argue and destroy each other rather than look for common ground. So, live long and prosper. Proceed forth into this world with love, and, try to have more understanding, even for the people you hate.